Peace and blessings. Give some people some time to check in here, and then we can get started. Hope that everybody is doing well. My name is Trinity, and this is my YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about healing yourself with light. But before I get started, I do want to just frame what it is that we're going to be talking about today. The concept of healing oneself. We have to first take a look at, what does that word mean, or what does that concept mean? And before that, we have to talk about what frame of reference we're coming from. A lot of us have grown up over here in America, and we have a particular way of interacting with things and doing things, thinking about things. So the perspective that I come from and everything that I do is the African worldview. And what that means is the way of looking at life, oneself, and the things that we go through in a way that is beneficial to me as a melanated person, right? The way that we operate over here in America is from the European worldview for the most part. The things that we talk about when we're saying, the matrix or, the system, those concepts are coming from the frame of reference of the European worldview. So it's important that we establish, which worldview that we're coming from. And that is where I'm coming from, the African worldview. And when it comes to the African perspective of healing oneself, based on my studies, I've found that it is as simple as aligning yourself with nature. When you align yourself with nature, you allow the laws of nature or the spirituality that is nature to bring you into balance. Balance is where healing happens, right? When we're talking about dis-ease, that is a lack of harmony with nature or with the way that your body should be, right? So when we allow nature through, going outside and being in nature or eating more in alignment with nature, that's when we allow the essence of nature to heal us. But to get into today's topic, I'm going to be talking about the two-step process of healing yourself with photovoltaics, right? So what is photovoltaics? Let's break down the word in terms of etymology, right? So photo refers to light. Voltaic refers to electricity, right? So photovoltaics together is speaking of the concept of light becoming electricity or light generating electricity. And that in the context of healing, right? The concept of photovoltaics and healing, we're really talking about the nervous system, right? How can we use light, this concept of light, to balance our nervous system? right? To balance the way that our mind is working with the way that our body feels. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're able to do that, that is when you can be in alignment with nature, right? And experience the healing that it is that you need, whether that be spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. So to frame the concept of photovoltaics in the African worldview, I want to take a look at a ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemetic text called the Atin text. And my first time being introduced to this concept was through Professor Kaba Kamene in his book Spirituality Before Religions, right? And I have a link for that in the description. But I want to read a piece or a quote from that book here. Atin was the name given to the sun during the 18th dynasty. The text paid tribute to the light, heat, sound, energy carried to earth by the sun's rays. The Aten text praises the beauty, righteousness, energy, brilliance, and eternal majestic power that made the sun all-knowing, all-seeing, and forever present. The sacred ode declared the presence of the sun, defeated darkness on many different levels. When the sun rose, all of nature, or organic life, came to life, or consciousness. And when the sun set, all of nature slept, or went into unconsciousness. So to take a second, on that quote, what we're talking about in the beginning of time, right? You have these ancient African peoples, right? And they are living very close to the land in a tropical area of the world that is, constantly interacting with the sun. And as these ancient peoples began to develop over millennia, they began to pay attention to nature around them, right? And what it is that they began to notice was how the energy of the sun, as it shined down onto, the earth and them as human beings, they noticed the profound effect that it had, right? And if we take a look, at this part where it says, the sun, refers to the sun as all knowing, all seeing, and forever present. And another, place where we've seen that concept is the concept of God, in the Christian church, right? And even the Son, right? The Son of God being Jesus, right? If we think about that from the aspect of the sun being the sun, I'm saying like as in the solar system, now we see how we had this concept of this energy coming to earth and, bringing life to earth, bringing truth to earth, defeating darkness, right? So this is the importance of sunlight. But in the context of, healing ourselves with photovoltaics, I would like for us to take into account two forms of light, right? One of them is the sun, right? This external light that we interact with as human beings on planet Earth. But I also want us to think about our inner light, right? Your inner light is the aspect of yourself that relates to the inner child, or, your imagination, your state of consciousness, your motivation, the things that get you excited, the things that bring you a sense of, livelihood, right? We have to understand that aspect of ourselves, and we also have to understand, like I said, the external manifestation of the sun, right? So what is the healing process? How do we do it? Step number one is going to be shadow work, right? And when we're talking about shadow work, what is the shadow? The shadow is that aspect of yourself that is dark, right? Whether it be because you don't want to look at it or you don't know how, um, it is the aspect of ourselves that we don't tend to look at on a day-to-day basis, right? These are the things that we call traumas, right? Um, Things that you may feel shame around, things that you may feel guilty for. This is where our greatest pain lies. A lot of us have experienced childhood traumas. A lot of us walk around and carry a lot of generational trauma that, you know, we have just learned to deal with. And in the context of the collective, living within the matrix or, the system or whatever you want to call it, a lot of that exerts a certain pressure on us. It creates a certain shroud of darkness around us, right? To where we don't want to look at ourselves for who we truly are. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to look at ourselves in a sense of power, in a sense of light. But at a certain point, if you're desiring to experience something different, something better, you do have to look at yourself. You have to figure out who it is that you are beyond the things that may bring you pain, right? So that is what shadow work is about. Shadow work is shedding light on the things that bring us pain. And as you do that, right, as you bring consciousness, as you bring awareness to those things, the darkness of them begin to dispel, and you uncover the gems, you uncover the wisdom that was formed under that divine pressure. The second step of this healing process is to then take what it is that you have become aware of, right? Take the things that, you know, have brought you wisdom beyond the pain. Take those skills that you have gained, right? And you express yourself. So step number two is creative utterance, right? And there's another term that I want to go over here. This term is Atum, right? And if we listen to that word, is very similar to the word Atin, right? How we talked about Atin is the name that was given to the sun, right? In ancient Kemet, right? Atin. Now we have the word Atum, which is another ancient Kemetic word. And Atum refers to the word of God, right? Atum. And even another similar word to that is atom, right? The, tiny the tiny particles that make up everything, you know, that we interact with, right, are called atoms, right? Atoms form all of the molecules, and all of the molecules form, us and everything in creation. So when we're talking about the word of God, we're talking about the code that is embedded in these atoms that gives nature the laws to abide by, right? The word of God being definite, right? In the beginning, there was nothing. And then there was the word, right? The word brought about that spontaneous creation. And the power that we have as children of the creator, right? As the creations of the creator is to operate in its likeness, right? So we have the ability to enact that same creative utterance. If you find yourself in a place where, you're overwhelmed with your situation, you're going through things that, you've never gone through before, or you're dealing with things that you always have dealt with, and you're getting really tired and you feel surrounded in darkness, right? You may even have points where you feel hopeless or as if you are nothing, right? In those moments, the simplest thing that you can do, or there's always something that you can do, and that is to utter the desire for something different, or to utter something different, to utter the light, right? To tap into Atum, right? And to speak light into the darkness that you may be facing. So up until this point, I've talked of this process conceptually, right? So I want to get into some practical examples of like what you can actually do, like what is a task that you can do to move through this process, right? Number one practical example that I would recommend is for you to journal, right? The easiest way that I've learned to, the easiest way that I've learned to engage in shadow work is through journaling. So what you want to do is you want to either go outside. I know, we're approaching fall time here, and we may not have many more hours with the sun, but as depending on where you live, obviously, but getting out in the sun and simply just writing what comes to your mind. I call this a brain dump, like literally writing whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't have to be full sentences. The goal of this um, tactic here is to take a picture of the state of your mind. So if you are feeling overwhelmed or confused, it would make sense for your brain dump to look like a bunch of, incoherent words or, disconnected concepts, you know, or, you're feeling sad, So it would make sense for whatever it is that you're writing to be in that space, right? But the point is to write whatever it is that's on your mind without restriction and in the sun. And once we don't have, access to the sun, or if you're doing this at nighttime, you can always light a candle as well, right? But what about those times where, you are feeling hopeless, or, you know, the overwhelm is to such a point to where your mind is not really clear, right? Or you can't bring yourself to write anything down. Um, what I like to do in those moments is simply pray. You know, I think that we forget that we can ask for help. You know what I'm saying? No matter uh, what you may follow spiritually, you can always ask nature for help. The forces of nature. You can always ask the Most High Creator for help, right? And that is that creative utterance. You know what I'm saying? To be in that moment and to choose, just simply choose to become aware, to become conscious of a power higher than yourself. You know, that is the essence of light, right? So in that moment of darkness, all you simply have to do is become conscious of light, to become conscious of the essence of the creator, wherever it is that you receive it. So get in the sun and write, light a candle, and pray. Now, when it comes to my application of photovoltaics, um, being that, like, I've been doing it for a while, um, the process of shadow working and creative utterance through journaling and prayer. I mean, I found myself having to, do a little bit more to bring out more, right? For most of my life, I've always been an artist. I've been a creative person. Um, since I was maybe like 12 years old, I've always been into poetry and real big Kendrick Lamar fan. So a lot of his music inspired me to write my own. Um, but my journey, my spiritual journey consciously started about 5 years ago. And during this journey, when I was at that place where I was feeling overwhelmed and, I didn't know where I was lost, I was depressed, I was anxious. I felt like a failure, felt hopeless, all of those things. And the only thing that I could find the light in outside of, like I said, nature and writing was creativity, my creativity, poetry and music, right? And the best manifestation of, photovoltaics for me has been making albums, right? Making, um, an album of music with a particular theme and, a particular purpose. First album that I've, released is called Magic. And that album, like, is literally shadow work. Like, everything that I wrote in that album, the way that I structured it was intentionally for the purpose of shadow work. It was intentionally for the purpose of revealing my light. You know what I'm saying? And the journey that I had to go through in terms of facing all of this pain, looking at myself, looking at the things that I felt guilty about or that I felt shame around, you know. And, in more recent times, I've been working on the album to continue the process. I would say this one falls more in line with the second step of the process of creative utterance, coming out this month. But, this album is really me taking the things that I reviewed about myself in my previous album and really expressing my sense of empowerment and the wisdom that I gained. You know what I'm saying? So it is an album of self, what do you call it? Self-acceptance, pride, because this journey is hard. This journey is not a simple one. Despite our mental health and our spiritual health and emotional health not being a priority in our community, um, it is very important nonetheless. You know what I'm saying? And to embark on that journey while trying to deal with everything that we deal with as, melanated people, it's not for the faint of heart, to say the least, right? So that is, an application of mine, in particular. You can find, links to my SoundCloud in the description. And now I would like to open up, any questions anybody may have. So if you have any questions, you all can type, um, and, we can get into that. But I will give some time for that, about a few minutes here, and I'll come back on. Okay, so I do see a question here. How do you keep yourself grounded? Right. Um, in the context of photovoltaics, right? And what we've discussed so far, the sunlight is very grounding. Just for that to shine into your eyes, to feel that on your skin, is going to interact with your body in such a way, it's going to interact with your nervous system in such a way that is going to bring you down. It's going to allow you to relax. Um, and, for me personally, the act of journaling and writing, especially like slowly, helps me ground. Um, very simply, breathing. I like to do, square breathing, which is you go, for example, if we're doing square breathing for, 10 seconds, right? I would take a deep breath for 10 seconds. I would hold for 10 seconds. I would go out for 10 seconds. And then I would pause for 10 seconds. And just, a few rounds from that, you know, can help you ground. And another, to the question on grounding, another thing that, is very grounding is for me is to go for a walk or to do any type of movement in general, whether that's a quick workout or, some yoga. I really like to do Tai Chi personally. I don't know if you're familiar with Tai Chi, but it's a martial art. And, it's very similar to a yoga type of movement, very slow, very meditative. Um, I do see another question about, you know, from my pops about what can one do for depression. Um, Depression, to me, when I think about depression, I really think of that concept of being surrounded in darkness, being overwhelmed or overtaken by a feeling of darkness, or just like a spiritual, you know, dampening. Right, that's the way that I experience depression. Um, so again, in the context of photovoltaics or activating our nervous system through light, um, sunlight, again, is proven to help with depression and mood, right? To stimulate, the production of serotonin. Um, but when it comes to depression or doing something daily, I would really spend time with it, spend time with what it is that, is creating that feeling, what it is that, you know, is creating that sense of darkness, spending time with it and allowing yourself to feel it, number one, and then, to just express to yourself or to God, what it is that you would like to experience instead. Um, so yeah, that is what I would do, for depression. And in terms of, I'm assuming this is my cousin here. Um, so what's up, cuz? But as far as albums go, I got my SoundCloud in the description, but Magic for sure. That's my first album, and then my other album is coming out. My new album is coming out later this month. So I would recommend those. Or at least started with Magic on the one that's out. And also my meditation album as well, to create the space to be meditative or reflect. But yeah, I am about to go ahead and close this live at this point. um but in the description, I do have, based on what it is that I said, particularly spending the time to do shadow work and self-reflection, do have free journal prompts in the description that you can download, and that can assist you in that part. um my ebook is in the description. SoundCloud's in the description. um and next Wednesday I will be live again at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to be talking about melanin, right? How to activate your melanin, which is a big part of, it's very, very much connected to, today's discussion. And my intention with the lives that I do is for them to be interconnected and feed off of one another. So yeah, I hope that everybody has a good night. Um, and leave, for those of you watching the replay, who's catching the replay, leave in the comments, what was your biggest takeaway? And yeah, we'll catch up next Wednesday. I got a video coming out on Friday. Um, so yeah, I will catch y'all in the next one. All right, peace and love.